Hey, we are back for episode number 2. Tony, Smitty.
Peace.
We have to, out of the gate, just say a huge thank you. You blew our minds. One episode, just kind of a getting to know you, and the response has been incredible.
Hey, thank you. Felt good. Heard your comments, people. Tony, let me address something really quick. So in that first episode, we talked about how I don't organize my records, right?
Yeah, still hurting my head, but yes.
Okay. Well, I heard the people. The people have spoken, and I bought these, Tony. I am going to organize my records alphabetically. I heard you, people. Thank you for your feedback. I'm gonna take it. That's my next project. I'm not gonna do it today, but I'm gonna do it.
I love it. It's my oldest daughter listened to it, and she's never made a comment on YouTube before. Her first comment on YouTube was about you not organizing your records. Let me scroll down to it here. Sending Smitty to jail for not organizing his collection, but then bailing him out so y'all can make more episodes.
You know what's funny, though? I noticed a lot of people commented on the clip that we posted from the episode about me not organizing my records, and a lot of people do it the same way I do, so I don't feel too bad. A lot of people do that.
That doesn't make it right.
Yes, you're right.
A lot of people do a lot of stupid stuff, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And it's funny because just today I was looking for a record, and I couldn't find it. It took me a while. I'm like, I really need to organize, but I'll get there.
Well, it's good. It was kind of like all along, this was just, your wife and I talked before we even met, and she said, I need you to, under the cover of a podcast, get him to organize his record. Just like an intervention, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why we started this. All right. Well, thank you again. We started from scratch. We had not really posted any content on any of the social media for Music is the Glue. And we launched this thing. And, you know, we've got 125 followers. I think that number's probably up by now on Instagram. And we've got I think we're over 60 now subscribers on YouTube. And, you know, you're watching and listening, and that means the world to us.
Man,
so thanks.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We even had a couple of folks over on Apple already write a couple of reviews.
Yeah.
And they're short and sweet. I love this. They talk about music. What could be better than that? Love that one.
Right.
And then I've been following these two for a while on Instagram. Always love their content. Seeing them come together for a podcast is just amazing.
That's great.
So nice. Nice.
Also, speaking of ratings, leaving us, comments and ratings, it really helps our podcast. So please continue to do that. Spread the word. A couple of other things I want to address, Tony. So my wife said that I seemed really nervous on the episode. And after watching it again, I did. I wasn't myself. I was a little nervous. It'll get better. I told her it'll get better as time goes on. My personality, it'll come out more, my sense of humor. So just bear with us, people. Bear with us. It's coming. Also, one thing about wives, they're going to tell you things, even though you don't want to hear them. They're going to tell you. She says that I was doing this weird thing with my lips. So let me explain, people.
Okay.
I'm over 50. I'm 52. Who waits until they're 50 to get Invisalign? So I have Invisalign, so it makes me do this weird thing with my lip gets stuck to the Invisalign on the bottom. So I find myself kind of trying to unstuck my lip, and it also affects my speech sometimes. So I got a lot of excuses today, people. Hey, but it is what it is.
Hey, you know what, though? We promised in the first episode, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that, you should, because you're going to get to know a lot about who we are and why we're doing this. But we promised you we'd be real. We promised you, you're going to, it's a warts and all kind of thing. So I love that. Coming clean. There's not excuses. Hey, you're just letting people know where you're coming from.
I'm an open book, man. I'm an open book.
And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you did the Instagram thing, but as you've said in that first episode, you're an introvert. Being on camera is not a thing that you've done before. So yeah, it takes a little time to get used to that.
Yeah, it's a little different when I'm in the room by myself and I can do as many takes as I want to, to get it right. Yeah. So it's a little different for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I go back to what I said before. I'm happy you said yes. I just had a feeling from that first meeting we had just to see if we got along. I mean, if it would make sense to us. I mean, I was like, this is the guy. This is so perfect.
I'm glad you asked me, man. Like I said, I'm proud that I was your 12th choice, but hey, 12 is better than none,
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep peddling that lie. I have another YouTube channel with another business partner of mine, and he was my radio partner for 30 something years. And we've grown that one up to, it's almost to 18,000 subscribers, and that's happened over a few years. But that's where I post my music stories, the same ones you see on Instagram. I post on that YouTube channel. And there are long form content things he and I have done over there that don't have as many views as our first podcast we just put up, Smitty. So that is super exciting to me that this tiny little beginner podcast and YouTube account is already getting that kind of engagement. The comments came in, we asked you guys to tell us the first record you bought, and so many of you did that. And I think you're just into this interactive thing we want to develop. And I was excited before we started, but when you get nervous because we get excited, obviously, but then, you could put it out there and the universe could just take a dump on you and go, nah, Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see this. So seeing that at least a few people are interested out of the gate is very cool.
Yeah. I can't even express how grateful I am that, people want to watch little old me and Tony, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So thank you again. At the end, we'll remind you, we'll just say it one more time here. If you watch episode 2 here, or you listen to it, wherever you're getting your podcasts, which, by the way, let me just quickly, before I get into that, I had no idea there were so many places. I mean, obviously we all know Apple and Spotify, iHeart, Amazon. What the hell is Deezer?
Some of these podcast apps, I'm like, huh?
We're there.
Yeah.
So if you're the dude over on Deezer, you got a new podcast to listen to.
The one guy over on Deezer.
Exactly.
Let me stop. I shouldn't. Deezer, I'm sorry.
It could be
Deezer.
huge. I just don't know.
I apologize. Maybe we just don't know. We're not in the know,
I suspect a couple of guys in their 50s, we're definitely not in the know.
Right.
But Podcast Index, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Listen Notes, Pocket Cast. I mean, we are all over the place. And so literally wherever you go to listen to podcasts, you're probably going to be able to find us. Music is the glue. And going back to my point I was originally going to make, if you watch this episode, the first kind of real episode with a format that we're going to try to follow, and you're still into it, we hope at that point you will just take that tiny little moment to click subscribe on YouTube, or if you're listening on Apple, if you'll write us a review and give us a rating, that helps get our podcast heard and distributed. And we would really appreciate the help. And, like anything, any project like this, if you're not, Joe Rogan and you're doing grassroots stuff, you got to start small and get people to help you out with word of mouth. So let's see those shares go up. Let's see those likes and all that good stuff. And on that note, I guess we can kind of officially get rolling now. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Because we are going to be doing our first deep dive. And the deep dive we'll be doing in just a few minutes, maybe one of the most recognizable voices in all of music. I mean,
absolutely.
Pick a genre. When you hear his voice, you go, oh, I know exactly who that is.
Absolutely.
And we're going to kind of celebrate his career and talk about him in just a bit. We talked about our feature that we're going to be doing called Tony and Smitty's A to Z. So refresh everybody, Smitty, how this is going to work.
So A to Z is what we'll do is we'll take either an album or an artist, and it has to start with the letter for that episode. And this week is going to be letter A. Letter A.
So we each pulled something from our collection for the letter A. We don't know what it is, so this is going to be kind of a surprise. Learn a little bit about the record. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay. I picked one, and I actually don't have a ton of A records, like just as I'm looking at them alphabetically. But I tried to pick a band that I really like, a band I've known for a long time, and I didn't want to pick the most obvious from the collection because I think a lot of people would pick a different album by this band. But this is, for me, probably my favorite by this band. And as a bonus for picking this record, I'm also going to be able to shock your religious relatives. They probably are going to think I'm the devil himself for choosing this one. But the album I chose for my A is AC/DC, Highway to Hell.
Yeah, that's devil music.
Yeah.
That is devil music. That is devil music.
My own mother would not have let me have this album. If she knew I had it, she would have been upset.
I'm familiar with the album, though. Definitely familiar.
Okay, good. I'm not going to, obviously, these are not deep dives. It's not quite as in-depth, but but I'm just some personal reasons why I love this record. I like AC/DC a lot. It's a band, if you're familiar with them, you know what you're going to get when you listen to these guys. It's a blues-type rock thing. The lyrics are always going to be, highly sexually charged and inappropriate, but they can play.
And a lot of streaming.
Yeah, well, the singer that replaced this singer, so Bon Scott was their lead singer for many, many years, and this is the last album that he appears on.
Okay.
And it's such a sad thing for me. Like, this record is really great, and they had all the records before this had been produced by the Young brothers, Malcolm Young and Angus Young, are the two guitarists. Their brother George and another guy had produced everything, and they were pretty happy with them, and that they were great. And then I can't remember if it was a record company or a manager. Somebody came to them and said, "We want you guys to try a new producer." And they were pretty upset about that. They felt like they were asking them to turn their back on their brother, and they were like, "Hey, we don't want to do this." Long story short, it's the guy, kind of the Midas touch of the '80s, really, Robert John Mutt Lange. So Mutt Lange, if he came in to produce your record, chances are you're going to have a hit record. And so they did some songs. They went into the studio and did some songs. And they sent it to him, and they said, "What do you think? Do you think you can work with us?" And he was like, "Yeah, I definitely can work with you. This would be great. So let's do it." So they brought in Mutt Lange, and he, in his typical style, I mean, he makes you do your vocal 100 times. I mean, he makes, like, there were fights in the studio because they're like, "We don't want to do this anymore. You're killing us." Like Angus Young, he sat down basically and showed him how to play a solo on one of the songs. And Angus Young was like, "Who the hell does this guy think he is?" trying to show me how to play. But
Right.
he was a talented musician as well. He could play, he could sing. He taught Bon Scott how to breathe better so he could sing better. So what he brought to the band is immeasurable. And what makes it sad for me is they put this record out and it was a huge hit, and it had a sound like they hadn't had before, a much more polished sound. And people were like, oh my God, all this success. And then Bon Scott died. And, you know, he had an alcohol issue, and he died out in a car. He got left in a car at night, and he was drunk, and he threw up. And so he passed away. And so he never really even got to enjoy the incredible success that started with this record.
Right.
Now, the screaming you're talking about, when they decided to go on, because it was
That's the guy in the skirt, right?
in the skirt.
Doesn't he wear? Doesn't
he
he
wear
wear
a
a kilt?
I've never seen him wear a kilt.
Okay, am I thinking of somebody else?
Angus Young wears like a schoolboy uniform.
Yeah, that's what it is. Not
So
a
he's the
kilt.
guitarist.
Not a kilt. He wears the little plaid shorts.
Yeah, so he's the lead
Yeah, okay,
guitarist,
okay.
and he's the guy that's always out front. He's this guy. That's
Right,
Bon Scott.
okay.
That's the singer.
He's
there.
entertaining. I'll give him that. He's
Yeah,
very entertaining.
and even now, like he's in his 70s, and he's still out there running around on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to go on. They decided they might not go on. But then Bon's family said, you got to go on. He brought you here. You guys are all having all this success. You've got to go on. And they went out and hired Brian Johnson. And he's the guy. He's the crazy. And what's funny about him is his voice is really cool when he doesn't do that. Like I've heard him sing, and probably a lot of people have, just a regular voice, like a lower register, and a nice voice.
Okay.
So it's weird to me that that's what he went for. Obviously, it worked, because Back in Black, the next album that came out, one of the biggest albums of all time.
Oh yeah, I know that album.
So anyway, I love this album. Highway to Hell's a great one. There was some controversy when this album came, because there's a song in here called Night Prowler. And for those of you who were around and remember the Night Stalker killer in California,
Yeah.
back in the early 80s,
I think it was Richard Ramirez.
Ramirez, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great
Yeah.
Netflix documentary about that. Terrifying.
Yeah.
But they tied that song to him. Even though he never said this song made me kill or anything like that, he left an AC/DC hat behind at one of the crime scenes.
Okay.
And so, of course, the media tried to connect them somehow.
Of course.
The band says that the song's not even about anything like that. It's about a guy sneaking into his girlfriend's bedroom, basically. But I don't know. But I hate to see bands get labeled with stuff like that.
Yeah.
When that's not what they're trying to do. That's not who they are. Yeah. But anyway, so that's my A.
Okay.
If you've never heard it, you should check it out. There's some great
I've definitely heard it.
There's some great rock and roll in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited to see yours.
Now I have to admit I don't have that album. I don't have it. I'm familiar with it. I've heard it, but I don't have it.
So you got 7 copies of Stevie, but you can't get 1 copy of AC/DC.
Hey, I'll work on that. All right. So for my A, the album that I am holding right now is Al Green's Greatest Hits.
Come on.
Now I could have picked, a studio album, but this Greatest Hits, it came out in 1975. And to me, it's one of the greatest hits albums ever put together. They've had a couple reissues, I think in 95 and sometime in the 2000s, but it captures all the songs in Al Green's peak. It's a mix of, soul, gospel, R&B. I can't say enough about this album. It's widely regarded as one of the greatest hits albums ever. It's got, some of his signature tracks from the 70s. Tired of Being Alone. Tired of Being Alone to me is one of the greatest sing-along songs, karaoke songs of all time. If you don't know the words to that song, then I don't know what to tell you.
One of my favorite uses of that song, have you seen the movie Chef?
No, I haven't seen it.
Great movie. John Favreau is in there, and a lot of other people too. But there's a scene where he takes his son. They're like down on the boardwalk or something, and there's a street performer, and he's got a marionette of a skeleton. He's got all the little sticks and and he's basically got the marionette performing Al Green, Tired of Being Alone. And it's a crazy, cool little scene. That's a great song.
No, I'd like to see it though. And speaking of sing-along songs, it's got that one and I'm Still in Love with You, which I think tops I'm Tired of Being Alone is the best sing-along song, karaoke song ever. It came out in 1972, the year of my birth. So I have a special connection with this song. But yeah, this album is amazing. I could go on with all the hits that are on it. If you don't have this, get it together.
Yeah, get your life together. Yeah, well,
get your life together, please.
They did it right, and so many artists don't do it right. They try to rush out a greatest hits album before they really should. This, you're not getting any filler there. That's all great stuff.
And I'm not a big fan of greatest hits albums. I haven't bought a lot of greatest hits albums, but I've been disappointed with a lot of them.
Yeah.
New Edition came out with, and they're one of my favorite groups of all time, R&B groups. They came out with a greatest hits album recently, and I didn't get it. I wasn't happy with it, Tony.
Really? But was it too much stuff that wasn't really a hit?
There was a lot missing. I don't know if there was, red tape that prevented it from being put on the album. I don't know.
Guaranteed, because it's probably from an old label that won't give them permission to use it.
Exactly.
Man, that stuff sucks.
They missed the mark to me. But hey, Al Green, this album, please, please, please go get it. Al Green's greatest hits. You can get it anywhere.
He's begging you.
I implore you, please get the album.
All right, are we ready to do a deep dive on this guy?
Yeah, let's do it.
This guy, and I stand by what I said in the opening, he's got maybe, if not one of the most recognizable voices in music.
Absolutely.
Even when he's singing background vocals on songs, you immediately go, oh.
You recognize it.
He's on this record. He's been a silver fox for many years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He went great early like me. Michael McDonald.
Michael Gene McDonald.
You should know in our deep dives, we might just make stuff up. You don't know if it's going to be real or not.
His name's not Gene, I'm sure, but whatever.
It's funny because sometimes people are late bloomers, but Michael McDonald said from an early age, he was all about music. He loved it. First 45 he ever bought, Wake Up Little Susie by the Everly Brothers.
I didn't know that.
Had to do a little digging on that. I found an interview where he talked about it. So it's always fun to see what an artist like that was listening to when he was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
But he learned to play, I think the first instrument he learned to play was a tenor banjo, and which I didn't even know they broke banjos up into tenor and baritone and stuff. That was just a banjo. So that was new to me.
Yeah.
And he learned to play trombone and then, of course, piano and guitar and stuff too. And was in a bunch of different bands when he was in high school. And then one of the bands he was in was playing at a club outside St. Louis, which is where he's from. He's from a suburb of St. Louis. And there was an RCA producer in there, and I guess he was a staff producer for them. So just one of the many guys who worked for RCA. And he heard his voice and was like, okay, I'm offering you a record contract right now. I want to bring you to Los Angeles. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he did. He said, okay, well, let's do it. I think that was like 1970. Moves out there and then kind of stalled. He was doing demos and some other things, and he couldn't get his footing as an artist to get going. And he's still pretty young at that point. You figure in 1970, he's only probably 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah, he was born in 52, I believe. You know what's funny, Tony? It seems like every origin story of every great artist back then was, we packed up and moved to Los Angeles with no money, a beat up car, and nowhere to stay.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it went. I mean,
got to go to L.A.
Jackson Browne's another example of that. He moved to L.A., then he moved to New York, then he moved back to L.A.
Right.
I mean, that's where the action was, especially at that time.
Right.
So he gets out there and he gets noticed, and he finds out that Steely Dan is looking for some musicians. And he said I literally threw a keyboard into the back of the Pinto that I had, and I drove to where they were rehearsing so I could audition for them, like right there, right then. And he did it. And on the spot, he got the gig. And he said he didn't get the gig for his playing. He said they were fine with that. But I mean, you figure that's a band full of incredible players. So it's going to be hard to impress them that way. But Donald Fagen especially, loved his high voice. He said, I could sing the high parts.
Yeah.
And he said Donald Fagen loved that I could, quote, sing like a girl. So I thought that was pretty funny. But listen to any Steely Dan record from, I think, Katie Lied on.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear Michael McDonald. I mean, prominently in like Peg from Asia. Peg in the background. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you hear that, it's like, that's Michael McDonald.
I love the harmonizing on those albums. As far as I'm big on harmonizing. When I put Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Michael McDonald right there in the, my favorite as far as their voices, the harmonizing. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Well, and the crazy thing, like there's a special, I think it used to be a TV show called like Classic Albums or something. And they were talking about Asia by Steely Dan. And they interviewed Michael McDonald because, of course, he was singing all over it. And he said that was one of the hardest sessions I've ever done because I was doing almost all the background vocals. And they wrote these songs with these crazy tight harmonies where there's like 5 or 6 harmony pieces. And I had to sing them all on top of each other. So I'd sing through one with this harmony, then I had to go back and sing the next line of harmony. And they were so particular. Like they would make you go back and say, "No, that was off. You got to do that again." He said it was one of the hardest sessions he'd done. Yeah. And that would be tough to be singing all those parts. But that's what Michael McDonald did. So he became a touring member, and then he ended up being like a supplemental studio musician because if you know anything about Steely Dan, they stopped doing any kind of touring. They just wanted to be a studio band.
Yeah.
And he was pretty much on all their records up through 1977. But in the midst of that, like in the middle of all that happening, the Doobie Brothers recruited him. Ted Templeman, who was their producer, who also produced Van Halen, kind of helped him. They said, hey, I've got this guy that you might like. And he brought Michael McDonald in, and it was going to be a temporary fill-in thing. And he did so well, and they liked him so much, they made him a permanent guy. A little bit of bad blood there because Tom Johnston, who was their singer, got sick. And so they were, oh yeah, by the way, we replaced you while you were sick. Not cool. But yeah, that's another story. And he came back to the bands. It ended up being not hard feelings, I guess. But you think about It's kind of like Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth and Van Halen. People like the Doobie Brothers. They either loved them before when it was more of a rock and roll outfit, or they loved the more R&B stuff that happened when Michael McDonald joined. I'm a Michael McDonald guy. While I love a lot of early Doobie Brothers songs, I'm more about What a Fool Believes.
Yeah.
Taking It to the Street. You know, those hits.
Tony, you remember, I don't know if you remember, and this is how I became familiar with the Doobie Brothers. Do you remember an episode of What's Happening when the Doobie Brothers were on there? Because I heard their songs before, and for some reason, I thought they were black. So when I saw them on What's Happening, do you even remember that show?
I remember the show. I watched the show.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember the episode you're talking about.
Oh, that was a great episode. I actually saw it recently. But yeah, they were on the episode of the Doobie Brothers, and I was like,
well, I do have, excuse me, Mr. Smitty, I have a follow-up question. Why the hell were the Doobie Brothers on What's Happening?
Because black people liked their music.
Okay.
So but it was like one of those episodes where there was a concert in town, and they were trying to get tickets to the show, and, you know, a stupid concept, but it worked.
That's the 70s and 80s. Star Wars came out. The guys at Happy Days said, we need to do something that has space. And that's how Mork came to be.
Right. That was so stupid.
Regrettable. Very regrettable.
God, that was terrible.
I mean, I watched it, but it was terrible.
Yeah, I watched it too. I mean, we only had 3 channels back then, so, you know.
Right. We couldn't just run off and watch something else. All right. So back to Michael McDonald. So he joins the Doobie Brothers, and he's doing that. And he's on some of their, you know, most well-known songs or whatever. And you would think, okay, he's doing Steely Dan stuff. He's with the Doobie Brothers. He's probably pretty busy, and that's probably enough to keep his plate pretty full. No, not Michael McDonald. Everybody wanted him because he's such a great singer. So while doing those things, he also appeared on, I mean, and you're going to know these, like Christopher Cross, Ride Like the Wind.
Absolutely.
He's background vocals on that. He's on Stephen Bishop records. He's on a Bonnie Raitt record. He's on Kenny Loggins stuff. He and Kenny Loggins co-wrote a lot of stuff together.
They had a lot of songs together I loved.
Yeah. So he's doing all that. And then he leaves the Doobie Brothers and goes solo. And his first solo album had I Keep Forgetting, which was a big hit for him.
Yes.
And then he was like, but I still like, he loved to collaborate. So a quick rundown of some of the stuff he did in the 80s once he went solo. He co-wrote the top 20 Van Halen hit, I'll Wait.
And I didn't know that. I had no idea.
I don't think I knew that until I read Van Halen's producer's book. And because he said they were having trouble with the song. And so he was working with Michael McDonald too. And he went to him and said, hey, can you come help us finish this song? And I was blown away. I was like, I would never want to guess that Michael McDonald had a hand in writing I'll Wait. And it's a great song, but I didn't know. He had a Grammy-winning duet with James Ingram, Yamo Be There.
Yes.
Great song. Sweet Freedom from the movie Running Scared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines.
The late, great Rod Temperton. Absolutely.
He wrote a ton of hit songs.
Yes.
And that was a monster. And that, by the way, Running Scared, if you've never seen it, is actually a really fun movie.
I have. Great
Love
movie.
that movie. I'll turn that on. If I've had a couple of drinks and I'm like, I'll turn Running Scared on. It's always fun.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. And then he did a duet with Patti LaBelle on My Own. And it's a great song. So they recorded it, they did a video for this thing, but those two never met.
Never knew that.
They recorded their parts in different studios in different states, and then when they filmed the video, they filmed it, you know, if you've ever seen the video, they never appear together in the video.
That's wild.
And so the first time they actually met and sang that song together was after it had already become a huge hit, and they did it on The Tonight Show. Wow. And that's where they met and did the song together for the first time, which would be so weird to have been involved in this crazy big hit song, and you've never even met the person you're on the song with.
You know what's crazy? Nowadays, that's like the norm.
It's a much bigger deal if you actually get to be in the studio with the person you're singing with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And
I feel like it misses a little something. I think that coldness of being apart must not be as fun and as solid as being in a studio together. So anyway, so he did that, and then he was on Toto's I'll Be Over You. He even appeared in that video as kind of a face in the sky during that thing, and he was on like a Wang Chung song. I mean, he loves music, and he did some gospel stuff with the, I can't remember who it was, but he did some gospel music as well, singing backup. And why not? Because when you have a voice like that, come on. And so, you know, he put out a bunch of albums. I don't think he's put one out in 5 or 6 years, but he still tours all the time, still appears on other people's stuff. But one of my favorite stories that I've heard about him in the last couple of years, and maybe you saw this because it ended up on CBS News, and it was a big deal. Little snippets of it have shown up on Instagram. But he has a huge super fan, and she is an unexpected super fan because she's a little kid. Her name, she was 11 years old when the story happened, so she's probably 13 now, maybe. And I got to read some of this. So her name is Paisley Gardner, and she's from Des Moines, Iowa. And I guess the story goes that she first heard him on the radio. I don't know what the song was. I don't know if it was Doobies or solo or what. But she was like, oh my gosh, she loved his voice. And her quote was, I like his voice because it's very, very wispy and it sounds like an angel.
Wow.
And I get that. I mean, I think angels would sound as good as Michael McDonald. So she Googled him because she wanted to see, what he looked like. And she said she was shocked at how old he was. She didn't know. She thought he was going to be like a younger singer.
Yeah.
And when she saw how old he was, she was like, wow. But it didn't change her mind. She still loved him and she was obsessed. So her dad, being a good dad, surprises her. He gets tickets to one of his, like when Michael comes to Des Moines, they get tickets and they go to the show. And in the video that CBS News did, you can actually see she's in the audience and Michael McDonald kind of walks by and she yells out, she's, I love you, Michael. And he kind of waves at her.
Wow.
So that was the first kind of thing they had.
Yeah.
So then Dad starts posting these videos on TikTok about how much his daughter loves Michael McDonald. And they went to the concert and all this kind of stuff. And it goes viral. And CBS News sees it, notices it, and says, okay, this is a great little human interest story. So they get in there and they do a feature on her. And in that process, they also set it up where a Zoom call gets arranged between Paisley and Michael McDonald. So she got to have a Zoom and meet him online and talk. And so, of course, during that time, he does what any good artist does. He says, hey, I want you guys to come to a show and you can watch from backstage. And they were like, oh my God. So I think they went to like a show in Nebraska and she got to see him and they met and they took pictures together and hung out backstage.
Oh, that's cool.
And she said, the only thing left now is I have to be best friends with him. She goes, I've done everything else. Now I want to be friends. And I just thought that was the coolest story.
That's a good story. I didn't know. I haven't heard that story.
And again, it comes to what we talk about, why we started this podcast. Music is the glue.
Absolutely.
Not only can it bring people of different backgrounds, different races, religions, whatever together, ages, generations. I mean, these people are separated by 60 years.
That's crazy.
And she's one of his biggest fans.
That's a great story. That's
that's
great
story. Okay, so one of our features that we're going to do on the show occasionally, and we talked about this, we rotate some features out. Deep dive always happens, but this one is called the re-review.
Yes.
And we basically take a classic record, an album that maybe, you remember it fondly, you remember it as like, oh, wow. Or maybe you remember it like, I hated that album when it first came out. And does it hold up? Listen to that music now, and does it still spark something in you? Do you still go, man, I still love this record? Or if it's one you didn't like before, is it one now with some age and some years behind you? You go, wow, I can't believe I didn't like this record. It's a killer record. Because that's happened to me on some stuff. I needed some years and some experiences before I could appreciate some of that stuff.
Many a times, yeah.
So anyway, we picked one. I mean, it's a classic for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think you have your copy handy?
I have it.
All right, so our re-review today.
Right now, yeah. We are both holding a copy.
Yes, Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston's debut album.
I mean, this was a game changer. And it's funny, when this record came out, I only really knew the hits. Because, I mean, I was listening at that time. So you figure 85, I'm right smack dab in the middle of my new wave era, so I'm listening to The Cure and Joy Division and all these other bands. So I only heard what was on the radio at that time. Talk about having the magic, because, there are a lot of great singers out there. But I'm sure when Clive Davis, when they found her, like, wow, not only is she, she's a former model, she's charming, but she also has this girl next door thing. And then she has that voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't even imagine how excited they were about that prospect.
Clive definitely knew he had one when he met Whitney.
So there's basically what we'll do on this is we just kind of go through now. Initially, when this record came out, it was a mixed bag. I mean, there are a lot of positive reviews, mostly about her voice.
Yeah.
But there were also some reviews that were like, it's a little uneven. There's some songs on here that are not awesome. And so we will take a look track by track. And you probably more familiar with a lot of these than I was. I had to go back and listen to the record again just to kind of remind myself.
I was a huge Whitney fan when she first came out. I definitely had this poster in my room. Actually had a couple of posters in my room of Whitney. But yeah, this album, I could go through every song. I think the first song I heard Whitney on was probably a duet she did with Jermaine Jackson. I think it was called Do What You Do. The song was good. Love the song, but I love the video just because of Whitney. Listen, Whitney Houston, she was something special. She definitely was. I think the first song I heard by her in her solo career was You Give Good Love. I think that was her first single, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
when I heard that, oh man, I think I was 12 when that came out. And, I didn't know anything about giving good love, but that song was amazing.
I like that one. It's just got that groove.
Yeah.
And her vocals, of course, are crazy good. So that's actually one of my favorite Whitney Houston songs. Is it Thinking About You that's got where like she does a little spoken monologue in there somewhere, like classic 80s moment?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about that song?
It's okay. It's not like one of my favorites. It's okay. You know, I'll let the whole album play, but you know, I might be doing something else while this song is playing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about like vinyl. But like, I can remember being very guilty in the CD age of being like, nah,
skip.
Yeah, skip. And so there were songs I never heard. Like, and some of them, I mean, it was fair. I had heard the song and knew I didn't like it. Sometimes it wasn't fair. It was like, I don't really know this one. I'm not trying to. And so that's one thing I do like about vinyl, because I will let it play. But I'm like you. It's like I might talk a little bit during that one, or get up and go get a new drink, or whatever the case may be.
You know what's crazy? Sometime when I do that with vinyl, there are a lot of songs that didn't get any airplay, but they turn out being some of my favorite songs off the album.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. With Thinking About You, that wasn't the case, but.
All right. What about, let's see, Someone for Me?
Someone for Me. That's another one. It was okay. I liked it, but I was waiting for the next song to come on.
For me, that song is just okay too. And I think the fact that it's like 5 minutes long.
Yes.
You cut 2 minutes of fat off that song, and maybe you get something a little better.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But you're right. The next one is
Saving All My Love for You.
Come on.
Man.
It's between her vocal and then you get that saxophone in there. And there's a reason that, you know, the songs we're talking about where we're going on about how much we love them, there's a reason they were big hits, because they got that formula right.
And you know what? There's certain songs that I hear and I've heard in the past that I call them the perfect song. And to me, Saving All My Love for You is the perfect song. I don't think it could have got any better. I really do.
Well, I mean, how good is that song? She won a Grammy.
Yeah.
For that song, and then she sang it on the Grammys, and that performance got her an Emmy.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I mean, that tells you how big a song is.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember who wrote that song. I mean, I could look, but
well, we have the internet right here in front of us. Shall I look? You looking it up? All right.
I don't have my glasses, so wish me luck. Written by Michael Masser and Jerry Goppin.
Okay, Jerry. Oh, Jerry.
I know Jerry. I've heard of him.
He was Carole King's first husband.
I didn't know that.
So they co-wrote a ton of hits together.
Okay.
They wrote "Will You Love Me Tomorrow," "Take Good Care of My Baby," "The Locomotion." I mean, they wrote a bunch of songs together. So he's a legend. Yeah,
I definitely know who that is.
Michael Masser. That's a name I recognize, but I can't. Let's see. "Touch Me in the Morning," Diana Ross. He also wrote "Didn't We Almost Have It All" for Whitney.
He's all over this album.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote "Greatest Love of All," which George Benson, of course, did originally.
Of course, yeah. But speaking of "Greatest Love of All," I have to admit, I love George Benson's version. I loved Whitney's version. But I'm going to have to say the greatest version of that song was Randy Watson in "Coming to America." I loved it.
Yes.
You can't top that.
Okay. For sheer entertainment value, you're correct. I can't argue with you on that.
Absolutely. Randy Watson.
I did not see that coming.
Sexual chocolate, baby.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. You mentioned the "Nobody Loves Me Like You Do," the Jermaine
Jackson, yeah.
And I know they were. I think they were trying to get an "Endless Love" in there.
Yeah, they were.
It just didn't quite. And nothing against Jermaine, because he's talented, but at that point in the '80s, you're like, if you're getting any Jackson besides Michael, what are you doing?
Yeah. You kind of feel bad for the brothers,
Seriously, yeah.
Especially Jermaine. I think his whole attitude was, that should have been me.
I mean, it could be. And again, Drain's a talented guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it would be, I can't even imagine the dynamic in that family when
I couldn't imagine.
When you're dealing
with. I really couldn't.
Because pick any, I mean, I didn't grow up with brothers like that, but pick any sibling, like, sibling rivalry. And it's usually little things about, oh, I'm better at, I made first string on football, or I did this.
Right, yeah.
Your brother's Michael Jackson. That'd be like being, I mean, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, but imagine like if Jesus had a brother. It's like, oh, this is my brother Dennis. And he's just like.
He took it all the way to Jesus. Huh?
He got it all. He's got all this stuff. I didn't get it. All right. I'm sure I'll get some hate for that probably, but.
That's okay.
All right. So back to the record on the Music is the Glue re-review. Just ignore my sacrilege. How will I know?
How will I know?
I mean.
That video just plays in my head over and over. I mean, it so much, but it was a great video. It's
a great video. It's one of the first big videos. I mean, she looked great in the video, of course, and it was super fun.
Yeah, so colorful. I just remember it being so fun and colorful, bright.
Yeah. I think a little overplayed.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's one of those things. Just like, but it's a big hit for a reason. All at Once.
It's another. I would consider that a filler song.
Okay.
If it wasn't a bad song, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think it's tough when she did so many crazy strong ballads and big ballads. I think this is kind of underappreciated, but it's hard because when you raise the bar so high,
right?
I mean, how do you
exactly?
And then a second duet with Jermaine Jackson.
Yeah, they were really pushing that Jermaine Jackson Whitney Houston thing.
Yeah, take good care of my heart.
Yeah, I think they had 3 or 4 duets together back in that day.
Now you said they dated, right?
Well. That's what they say. I don't know, Tony. I wasn't there, but that's what they say. That's what they say.
Well,
they dated.
Okay. Did they date or did they just hook up?
You know, it could have been one of those. Could have been one of those industry relationships. You know, she was new,
Okay.
so they could have been. You know, hey, well, let's put her with Jermaine Jackson.
Yeah,
It could have been one of those things. Who really knows?
Yeah.
Who really
Okay.
knows?
I like how you're being safe.
Yeah, I'm being very safe.
Smitty's like, I'm not trying to get taken to court for anything.
No.
So Greatest Love of All, we kind of briefly talked about it a second ago. I like
And
that
it
song, but for me, it became, and I guess because of the way it got used in some comedies and like on television and movies and stuff,
Yeah.
it became kind of cliche, and it got less good for me over the years because of that, which is unfair because I mean, you know, a good song is a good song.
Yeah. I was a kid when this came out, and it wasn't like one of my favorites. I remember singing it. Let's say I would have been probably like in the 6th grade. I remember singing it in a program.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't one of my favorites. A great song. Don't get me wrong. Great song.
Yeah.
Great lyrics. Great message. But yeah.
Right, and then closing out an album. I mean, and again, this one. Did you have to make it 6 minutes? I know it's Teddy Pendergrass and it's legendary, but I mean, 6 minutes long. Hold Me is the song.
Yeah, and it was definitely too long for no reason. You know what? I don't think I ever finished the song. It's one of those, yeah.
In your house,
song.
it's a 3-minute song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pick that
okay, let me
up.
go ahead.
Yeah, there are there are some out there, obviously, and it depends on how much you like the artist, I think. There are some artists where they could do a 6-minute song, and I'm like, man, I wish that song was 4 minutes longer.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
And then there are some artists or songs where it's like, if it goes longer than 4 minutes, it's like, this is too much.
Yeah.
I don't need all this.
That's one of those songs.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, in our re-review, does Whitney Houston's debut hold up? Is it as good as you remember? Is it still the record that you loved back then?
Definitely. I listened to it recently, and even though some of the critics got it wrong, I think it was on the charts. I think it topped the charts for like 14 weeks or something crazy.
Yeah, it was a big album.
1986. It was crazy. But yeah, it definitely holds up. It's a beautiful album. Like I said, a few of the songs weren't my favorites, but they weren't bad.
Yeah.
They just, when you have mega hits on there like the other ones, it's hard to stack up. But yeah, I think it definitely holds up.
It holds up for me because there's nothing different today. Like I feel the same way about the songs I don't like today are the songs I didn't like then.
Exactly.
And the songs that are great, I still think are super great. So as a debut album, I think you would be hard pressed to find that to be disappointing.
Absolutely.
I think we're done. I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
Yeah, man. Another one down.
So as we said before, and we'll probably keep saying it for a while, as this is brand new and probably 10 people are going to watch it. If you like it, great. Please make sure you give us a like. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe to the channel, and then wherever you might be hearing or listening, make sure you give it, an upvote, a like, a thumbs up, whatever the thing is.
It really matters.
It does.
Reviews, likes, shares, it makes a big difference.
We want to get it out there, and our promise to you is that we will continue to work to make it smoother and better and fun and yada yada yada. So next time when we come back, not next week but the week after, our Tony and Smitty A to Z will be on letter B.
B, baby.
So we bring something from our collection where the band or the artist name starts with B, and then we got another segment called Where Were You?
Where were you? Yes.
And it's just what it sounds like. We'll bring up a classic song or album, and we'll talk about, where were you the first time you heard this, or what's your big memory from the first time you heard this, and hopefully it will inspire some
that's going to be fun.
Memories for you too.
Yeah.
And our deep dive, I'm super excited about this one because it's got a little something for two big genres of music. We've got a legendary hip hop group who brought basically a rock band back from the dead. And if you are a big music fan, just by that sentence, you may already know who we're talking about.
A lot of you know exactly who we're talking about.
So we'll be talking about who it was, how they did it, how it came to be. But we're excited about that one. That should be a lot of fun.
I can't wait for that one.
Well, Smitty, as always, great to see you. Great to talk about music with you.
My man.
Thank you guys for watching. Please continue to watch, share, tell your friends, and remember that music is the glue that brings us all together.
Absolutely.
See you soon.
Until next time.